30,000 downloads.
It's just unbelievable, isn't it? Like, and I'm so glad that they actually write it on Buzzsprout's like 30k, because if they did it in zeros, I wouldn't be able to quantify it at all.
I just like, as the numbers keep going up every week, there's something in my head that just can't compute.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't feel like that's like as big as a deal as it is. Does that make sense?
Imposter syndrome.
Well, yes. And we've been talking about that a lot this week, and that is definitely something we'll be covering.
Yeah. It's so funny though, because it's like we said, it tripled in a month, which is just so mad, for want of a better word. Apologies. And but then for the last episode, well, we had like a little dip, and really not much of a dip, but then
it was one day.
Yeah, and my RSD kicked in hard, and then I had to have a word with myself and go back and realise that even with that, within a week, for the number of downloads in a week, it still puts us in the top 5% of podcasts, which is just so ridiculous. You and me,
I can't get my head around
it.
Like, I can't. Even though I look at the numbers and I look at what we're doing, and people keep telling me how well it's doing.
The testimonials of people getting diagnosed or starting treatment or starting, reaching out for help in some way, and it just doesn't go in.
I still feel like, when you're a kid and you're like, I'm at home and I'm going to record myself on a tape player and pretend I'm like a radio presenter or whatever. I still feel like that part of me is just like... One of those little Fisher-Price Brown things with the button. Well, no, I used to record myself on tape players, and my brothers would nick them and then laugh at me. Because I'd be like...
That might still be happening.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably are still laughing at me. Definitely. But yeah, it just doesn't feel real.
And that's the thing as well with like the competition that we did. In my head, I was like, well, we're like Aberdeen based, so there's going to be loads of people in Aberdeen. And then when we didn't get that many entrants, to go back through our listenership and our followership on Instagram, it was like, oh no, we're actually not that local. Like, predominantly our followers are in other places.
We're all over the place. I mean, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah.
It's really, really bizarre. But again, that is in part imposter syndrome. And it's so funny because we wanted to carry on our theme from the previous episode about being a creative and entrepreneurship and all of the rest of it. So the event is coming up that I'm putting on with Open Road Limited, the Fabulous Fitty Fashion Fest, which I'm so excited for. And that is in celebration of Aberdeen creatives and to raise awareness for ADHD and funds for the charity ADHD Adult UK. And it's all sort of happening at the same time, which is amazing. So if you do happen to be one of our local followers or listeners, please do come down to the event, which is on Saturday the 20th, 11 till 3 at Fitty Community Hall, because it's going to be amazing, and we look forward to meeting the competition winner and +1 on the Friday. But speaking of creative entrepreneurs, we've got a really bloody exciting one that actually agreed to speak to us.
I know.
Helen Anderson.
Yeah.
And she's just so bloody lush.
Oh, she is. She's just so easy to talk to, so down to earth.
She's so funny.
Yeah.
And everything she was saying was just like so hardcore relatable.
Yeah, let's just go listen to her.
Let's listen to her. And God love her. So we're very, very excited, and we're very, very grateful to you, Helen Anderson. So enjoy this episode.
ADHD as females, ADHD AF. ADHD as females, the podcast.
Hi, I'm Dawn.
Hi, I'm Laura, and we are ADHD AF. Seriously. We are two neurodivergent neighbours who moved to the same street at the same time, at the same age, with the same undiagnosed disability. What are the chances?
Since discovering the enormous impact ADHD has had on our lives and the horrifying numbers of missing undiagnosed females, it has become our mission to make some serious noise.
We want to use our voices to raise awareness, break the stigma, and share our experiences in the hope that they help others.
So join us for a chat, or as it's called up here in Aberdeen, a blether.
Trigger warning, we will be covering some really sensitive topics, so please do have a read of the description of each episode before listening.
It's important to note that we are not medical professionals. We're not therapists or coaches. We're not qualified to offer advice or support. What we will do is share our experiences alongside resources and information from professionals. We will talk over each other and we will go off topic and forget the point mid-sentence.
We are both assigned female at birth, which means that we can only speak from the experience of life as AFAB people. However, ADHDAF is an inclusive space. Whatever your gender, you are very welcome here.
Yes, you are.
ADHDers females, ADHDAF.
Hello, and thank you for joining us, Helen Anderson. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I was really honoured to be asked to be on the podcast.
Oh, bless you. That's really, really kind. I'm sure that all of our viewers will have heard of you, but just in case they haven't, will you tell us what you do, a bit about yourself, your name, age, occupation?
Okay, my name is Helen. As we know, I am 31. I am a internet person, so I've been on YouTube. I've been on YouTube for 10 years. I've been Instagramming and doing various blogging and online content creation. I also own my own online shop called Sweet Honeydew, where I design prints and t-shirts and get like candles from places and sell lots of stuff. And I'm also in a band called Sunny Bones where I sing, and it's great.
That's fantastic.
Amazing.
That's a lot of things, isn't it? That sounds quite ADHD in itself.
Yeah. Yes. I've come to realise this.
So that leads us to our first question in regards to ADHD. And How did you come to suspect that you had ADHD?
So, funny enough, I met my friend last week who was the person that suggested or who said to me, do you think you have ADHD? Because like a couple of years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, we were chatting about life and like mental health, and she was saying to me that she just got diagnosed with ADHD, and I was like, whoa, what's that all about? And she was talking to me about like why she has it, like the ifs and buts and what, all that, like all the details. And I was like, oh, sounding pretty.
Pennies dropping.
Yeah. And then I started to speak to her about like the way I felt and my mental health and like just the way I cope with life and live my life. And she's one of my closest friends. And she said to me, you should probably get checked out as well, because it's sounding really like you might have it also. Yeah. So that was like the first seed that was planted. And I kid you not, since then, since after that time, it was cropping up more and more and more, like other people suggesting it, seeing about it more online. Yeah. I even had people in like, actually some people that tried to diagnose me in video comments would say things like I've got personality disorder or bipolar, and a couple of people said ADHD, and I was like, oh, okay. I don't like it when people do that though in comments, because I think it's kind of rude.
Yeah, it's very rude. It's very rude.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I think it's really interesting because what you are describing is basically the same story for both of us.
Yeah.
It was also Pink Pear Bear was the same, wasn't she? Mm-hmm. And Clementine Ford. All of us, it is that same way.
A friend of a friend.
It's not really like appropriate, like you say, to go around diagnosing people, but at the same time it's that conversation with a friend who has been diagnosed or who knows a bit about it and starting to see the similarities there. And
I've just realized my shirt's inside out. Well, that's my friend Sinead also, she's a bit of a dark horse really, because she's like the mum of our friendship group. She's a bit older than us, but she's also the one we go for, like, Sinead, I'm bleeding, or Sinead, I broke this. She just fixes everything, but she knows a lot about mental health. She's got like her own things. That I say dark horse because none of us knew. And then I spoke to her about it once. She just was like, yep, I've got it as well. she's not been diagnosed yet because unfortunately she's waiting still.
Yeah.
Because she's so like, once she gets information about something, she has to know everything about it. And so every time, I don't know, I'd do something or say something, she'd be like, oh, that's your ADHD. And I'd be like, oh. But then, then I got diagnosed recently, and then everything just made sense.
Yeah. So that's how you came to suspect you had ADHD.
Yes.
And how, like, obviously, I don't know if you've heard, but Dawn is still in limbo. She's a step closer to getting her diagnosis now. Yes, we're getting
I'm just waiting for a letter and an email to give me an appointment date, and I've been told September, so fingers
crossed. Getting there now. I got diagnosed privately because I had access through my husband's work, but previously when I was living in Norwich, darling, I was put on the waiting list and I was told 18 months, and then COVID happened, blah blah blah. So we've all had the waiting game, but how has the diagnosis process been for you? What has been your experience?
Well, I was an asshole and went private.
No, I think it's good. I think you should do that. If anybody is able to do that, they should absolutely do that, because your mental health is so serious to be waiting.
Yeah. It was like, I was spending a lot of time. I started therapy in 2020, and I went on antidepressants as well. And so I felt like it was a time anyway where I was really investing in my mental health to try and figure out and fix myself. But that's the wrong term to use, because I now know that I can't be fixed.
Yeah.
So I'd been doing things that I guess did help, but they weren't, but they also didn't as well. Like, so therapy helped me through talking through things that I find difficult, or talking through situations.
Yeah.
Going on antidepressants, I thought helped, but I've come to realize that actually they don't. And my mood fluctuation is a lot more complex than just giving sertraline tablets.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, do you know what? If this is going to be my answer, I'm going to just bloody do it. So I just bit the bullet and I did it. I was like, £900 it cost me.
Yeah.
Ended up being such a worthwhile investment, because it's just a peace of mind now, and I can do the work, as it were, to move in the right direction. And also, I don't know, it was just like the seatbelt had been undone.
Yeah.
I was just like,
and it's everywhere.
Trouser on. Yeah, just like, wow, I can breathe now. Oh my God. Yeah.
So when exactly was this, and how long did it take? Like, how did you find a place to go, and then how quickly were you seen?
Okay, so I started looking at the end of last year, but because I'm incredibly forgetful, I forgot to follow it up, reply to their email. And then I was like, oh, that thing I need to do. So I resumed beginning of the year. I think I was seen about a month and a half later for my screening. And that was like an hour and a bit of intensive questioning. And then about a month and a half after that is when I went for my diagnoses. And that's when basically they didn't ask me the same kind of questions. There were different questions of the same psychiatrist and another lady psychiatrist. Another psychiatrist, sorry, that was a lady. They were I just think of her as the nice lady. And then I was like, okay, now what is it then? And Graham, who's the guy that like runs ADHD Norfolk, was like, oh yeah, no, you definitely have ADHD. Like we know that. I could tell from the minute I saw you. But we were just, but we just had to have someone else sort of. So they then had to do all this paperwork and send it off to the doctors or the NHS.
Yeah.
So now it says on my NHS app, ADHD. So, cool.
Yeah. So then did you decide to go down the medication route? Are you doing that?
I've not done it yet. I still haven't actually done anything since.
Okay.
So I do want to look into not counselling. What's the word?
CBT?
No. not counselling, what's it called? Coaching.
Yeah.
Another C word. I am intrigued to see what medication might offer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I am sort of thinking, yeah, I probably should, because as much as I do all the stuff that they advise me anyway, like exercising regularly, having a good balanced diet, making sure you've got like extra vitamin B and D, and and I was like, well, I already exercise loads. What else can I do? Live on a treadmill. So I was like, they were concerned, and I know that a lot of people have said this though, that we worry that if you went on medication, it might dim your sparkle or your creativity. I'm like, well, you don't know that until we try it. So the option is there to do it. I just need to say the word and they can write me out a prescription.
I guess it's funny, isn't it? Because it's to do with, and a lot of people come to us and say, oh, I think I might be ADHD, and should I seek diagnosis or whatever? And we're just like, our feeling is like, how much is this impacting you? How negatively is this impacting your life? Are you, really struggling? Are you, in danger, in inverted commas? Because as we've said, like, depression, ADHD, it can lead to very serious things. So if you feel like you're in a place where you can speak to a coach and cope, then that's fantastic. It's only if you feel like you're struggling, then I really obviously I can only speak from my own experience, and every single person is different, obviously, but I get a bit annoyed by the medication is going to take something away from you, like you said, your spark. But a lot of people say creativity and things like that, and I haven't found that myself.
Right.
And it's really really helped me. But I also don't want to be like, everyone should be on meds, because that's not my place to say it. But I know that it has
absolutely
greatly improved my life anyway.
Yeah. For each individual, I think. Yeah.
I feel that, I think coaching for me is more so much of like how to live with it, and others around me learn to live with it.
Yeah.
But I do really think that, because going back to that point of a lot of people, a lot of people have said to me, oh yeah, everyone's a bit ADHD, or I think I've got it. And one thing that the psychiatrist said to me is to reply and saying, but does it impact your everyday life? Does it make your life more difficult? And I think for me, I've always felt like a shaken up can of Coke, right? So internally I'm so like this, and my brain is quite often quite scatty. I get very overwhelmed very quickly. I'm like a volcano. I'm 0 to 100. And I think that, therapy and coaching is brilliant. But I think that if I could just slow it down and just calm it down a bit, that would be really helpful, because that is probably the most debilitating thing about it, is how when I get worked up inside, I'd be looking really calm and complacent, but my brain is in turmoil. And I think it somewhat blinds me. It blinds my judgment. It blinds judgment and my feelings on things and how I react to things and the way I perceive things. And also even down to time management, and everything is blinded by a lot of the time this out of control hyperactivity, or almost what's the word? Okay, let me try and think of it. Say for example, something mildly stressful happens, something comes up, right? And it disaligns your day. Sometimes I find it very hard to rationalize that and go, it's fine, I can cope. It's just this. It's like, this thing has happened. I need to now change X, Y, and Z to fit this in. And fuck, how am I going to do all this stuff?
You're basically speaking about my day to day. That's how it feels. That's been my day to day.
Well, but on the outside, you're like, okay, inside you're screaming.
Yeah.
And it just feels like absolute chaos.
Yeah. I think sometimes what happens as well with our kind of more like black and white thinking is that we ADHDers can get fixated on like the wrong side of something. So for example, we can get lost in the injustice of something, and that can make something feel so enormous that actually isn't that big a deal, because if you could look at it objectively, it's just this.
Yes.
Like you're caught up in the this of it, but actually that doesn't even really matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. It's about having the space in your brain and being able to cope better with the things that trigger you. Definitely. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's also where like just stuff things like, say for example, we'd plan to have burgers, and I knew about this really great condiment that would go perfectly with this burger.
Yeah.
Right. I would, if I went to Sainsbury's and they didn't have it and I knew that was the place to get it, oh my God, what do we do? It would just turn into an absolute, like, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but to me, it's like, well, I have to do something about this. We have to go to the other Sainsbury's, which is 50 miles away, because they might have it.
Yeah.
And you just can't think logically. You can't think it's all right, we'll just do something else. Yeah. So no, I'm fixated on this idea now. Yeah. And the thought of shaking it off and doing something, an alternative, for me is like, I can't do it.
And you might get there eventually, but sometimes it could be hours or days, and then you look back and you realize you've wasted all this time.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's just, and you feel, it applies to literally nearly anything, and you feel like such a fool. And on reflection, you're like, God, did it really matter? But in that moment, it really matters.
Yeah, because you feel it.
Understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
So what do you feel that undiagnosed ADHD has cost you? And that's not like, however you want to take that, if that's money, however.
Probably a lot of it has had to do with like my past relationships with partners.
Yeah.
I think that I have always been someone that falls very deeply and quickly in love with people, gets over, like, mesmerized by them. That's all they're the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I start getting it loses its spark, its shine. I start to feel resentful and then disinterested, and then bye. And I also accompany that with like already having sort of rejection issues and needing to feel like nurture and having someone. And, that I've learned from therapy being a result of like having a somewhat problematic childhood with like my parents breaking up when I was 5, being moved around, having like not the particularly best role models. And then the ADHD has exacerbated that by, I would struggle being single. I didn't think it was me struggling to be single at the time. It was like, I just love having boyfriends. They just can't keep them away from me. Like, it was just like it was like always me thinking that was just the way it was. But in reality, on reflection, I suppose, I kind of always felt like I needed that something there for me, and then I guess also, so that's quite a big part of it, but also like people get frustrated with me. My family have given me such a hard time, especially in my 20s. My mum actually has been really supportive of this ADHD diagnosis, because I think she feels quite guilty about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, oh, we just thought you were useless, or we just thought that when your career was taking off, you didn't care about anyone else and you thought that you could just do what you wanted. And so they were clearly bitching about me and saying some mean stuff from how she was describing it, like, Helen thinks she's better than us, or Helen thinks Helen doesn't care about things, she's just clumsy and careless and doesn't care. Yeah. And I was like, when have I ever been malicious or not cared about anyone. In fact, it's the complete opposite. All I've ever tried to do is please people and be generous and try and like not convince you, but try and all make you feel like I do love and care about you. But if I'm late for something, or I forget something, or I forget to text you back, or I've forgotten to say happy birthday once before, it's not because I don't give a shit. It's because it's just the way I am. And then now it all makes sense as to why. But like, you know, people have given me a hard time over the years for just being me. You know, I've also had like ex-boyfriends give me a hard time about just the way I do things or the way I react to things. And all of these things eventually they grind you down. They belittle, or the belittling and the you're too much, or you're not doing this, or you're doing that wrong, or you're too loud, or you talk too much, chips away at your self-esteem. And I think that is partly as to why, as for someone that is always online being all about loving yourself and being confident, ironically has quite low self-esteem.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. Like we always say this, it's quite hard when we're talking to people, because the things that you're describing, like we really feel them and really feel them. And like, honestly, I could have just said what you just said, hands down. And it's very, very hard. It's great that your family are being supportive now. Like, what do you feel? Sorry, I'm going off piece with the question. You can tell me shut up. But like, do you feel that like, with this whole idea that getting a late diagnosis can be like a grief cycle, right? So they say that you come in and it's kind of like relief, but that's also part of denial. Do you feel like you're somewhere on it, or do you feel like how do you feel in yourself? Do you feel relieved? Do you feel sad? Do you feel angry?
You know what? It's been a real roller coaster of emotions. So, and I feel relief, knowing that I'm not a bad person and that I'm not useless, and that my day-to-day struggles aren't my fault. I mean, I don't know if we're going to talk about them, go into a bit more detail, like day-to-day stuff, but then I guess there's no point being angry at the people that treated you like shit because they didn't know, because I didn't know. And it's like, it's always that thing of, if they knew, would they have treated me this way? But there's no point thinking like that because they didn't know.
There's no point, but it's sometimes hard not to. Still.
It's hard. Yeah, you just think that wasn't fair the way I was treated because I couldn't help it. But that's because I know that now.
So I guess it's important to look at how people treat you now, and if people. Now that you have your diagnosis, and if people are still treating you the same as they did before, then
we're gonna have some issues.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
But it's almost like it's been overwhelming. I must admit, it's been kind of like the only way I can describe it is like, it's a bird's eye view. Imagine like your life is your Sim City, and you're now out, you're looking down on it and you're zooming in on bits, and you're like, ooh, yeah, that, okay. And then it just, everything for a short period of time after my diagnosis and after I'd done the research, everything I was doing in my everyday life, I was like, is this the ADHD, or is this just me? Oh my God. And like, I did feel like I kept going on about it a lot. I felt bad. Like, say, for example, me and my partner Phil got in an argument and I got really upset, and he'd be like, oh, I'm like, it's because I've got ADHD and I find it really difficult to take criticism, and I don't like it when you shout at me, and I've taken everything really, really personally and literal, and so you have to be really careful how you word things because it's very important. And so when you keep saying it's because of my ADHD, you think, God, I'm getting annoying. But you're almost figuring out for yourself at the same time. I would never use it as an excuse or a crutch to be a dick, but it is an explanation for why certain things are the way they are.
Absolutely.
100%. So if you just mentioned about day to day, like, I don't know how we're doing with time, but why don't you tell us, like, what are your daily struggles? Because obviously a lot of our listeners will see you as this hugely successful person, and as we all know, us ADHDers love to self-loathe, so we'll all be looking at ourselves going, we're shit and she's amazing. So tell us, what are your struggles?
Okay, so first of all, I don't see myself as a hugely successful person. That's the first thing, which I also know is stupid. I need to like shake off the fact that, I need to be a bit more self-loving, I suppose. But I think day-to-day struggles are, I find it really fucking hard to stay focused and stick to a routine.
Yeah,
I get bored of things very quickly, and when I get bored of things, it's not happening. Like, I'm not doing it. And I think back to when I worked in an office, like 9-to-5 job, and thought, how the fuck did I do that? Oh wait, I did spend most of the time looking out the window wishing I was somewhere else and wondering why is life so repetitive and boring. So like, what else? Being very forgetful. I'm doing something and this and ooh, what's happening over here? I'll go do that. Shit, I need to go back and do that thing. And like, people are like, oh well, you just get distracted easy, or you just like to procrastinate. And it's like, yeah, but you don't do it all day all the time, unless it's something that I'm really engrossed in. So hyperfixate on like a task which excites me, something new, then that's okay. But I think day to day it is mostly like, staying on task, staying on time, forget, like, having that kind of, sometimes I need a rocket up my ass to just get going, because sometimes you find yourself having a cup of tea, scrolling on your phone. I'm just having a little 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes turns into an hour, and you're like, oh my God, where's the time gone? I need to get going. And this just constant sort of, no matter how many times I write stuff down, make a list, my head still feels like spaghetti. Like, I cannot, if I know I've got a lot to do in a day, it's like, where does it go? Where am I placing these things in my brain? It's not in any order. I've written it down, but it's still there. There's still loads of words on a piece of paper. It's just, but like, I do get shit done. Like, I get my stuff done.
Yeah. Is that deadlines? Is that because you have to get it done in that minute, or is it not the pressure?
I like pressure. Pressure gets me going. Love a bit of pressure. I've never missed a deadline, and if I do, I'm groveling. But I've never missed a deadline. I've always got my work done. I do forget when it comes to like emails and like admin stuff. I'm quite forgetful because I don't really sit down doing that much. So that kind of always gets tossed to the side. Yeah. But I don't know. And even stupid things like, before I started even therapy, and like one of the reasons why I felt like I was quite down all the time was the constant questioning of what I'm doing and how I'm doing things, even down to, I'm filling the washing machine at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Is this what everybody else does?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this normal? Or like, just every, I don't know about you, but if I find a routine that's quite comfortable, or I think that this is going to work for me, I'm like, this is it. This is my new routine. This is me forever. And then 3 or 4 days later, it's like, oh, I've completely gone off piece and I'm not doing that routine anymore. Right, let's try and make a new routine. Well, how can we change it to make it more exciting and more like reasonable? Okay, then that didn't work. And it's just the same thing every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it's quite a difficult question really, because you've had a different experience than a lot of people, but especially with your friend in mind, like, yes. What would you change? Hang on, have I missed out a question? Did I ask what has changed for you since diagnosis?
No, we haven't asked that.
Okay.
What has changed for you?
What has changed is so before diagnosis, my day-to-day struggles I just put down to me being incapable of being like everyone else.
Yeah.
Like so Instagram is a fucking pain in the ass, but you go on there and you're like, oh, so-and-so's already done half their to-do list already today. So-and-so's at the gym, or that person's doing this, and that person's like, you know, managed to whatever. And I'm like, why have I not done that yet? And why can't I stay focused? Or why do I find work like being consistent really difficult? And I just thought that I was lazy, or I was just stupid, or not stupid, that's the wrong word. Just thought that I just didn't have the capabilities, and I thought there was something wrong with me. Like, oh God, you're just terrible. You're just awful. No one's going to hire you ever. Like, and now I'm like, no, it's because my brain is completely different to all of those people. And they might be able to do that 5 days a week, but I can't, because I need constant stimulation and I need to be excited in order to do things well.
Yeah.
So
isn't it horrible to even think of Helen actual Anderson, even thinking of yourself in those terms, with everything that you have achieved and how successful and a huge following, and therein lies the absolute joke of ADHD brains.
Yeah, and I hate it.
Or so undiagnosed ADHD brains.
But I will say, I still wouldn't change it, because I am doing a zillion things all the time. Yeah, it's stressful, but the energy it gives me is fantastic. I'm outgoing. I talk to anyone. I bring energy to a room. Like, I get really excited about things and I do it well. And I'm like, you know, I have my days where I'm just like, I'm not doing much. But when I when I have my up days, I'm like, let's go to fucking Mars, bitch. Like, you know, and I you know, the people at ADHD Norfolk are like, you're amazing. You are like, you're a rock star. You are, you know, this is your superpower. You wouldn't be who you were if you didn't have it. And I was like, yeah, no, you're right. I don't think I would. And I know it's problematic and it can be a real hindrance at times. And it's caused me a lot of shit. But I love myself the way that I am.
Yes, Helen, that is amazing.
Yeah, so the next question that we were going to ask was, if you could implement change in the diagnosis process, what would you do?
What would it be?
Yeah, obviously
you quicker.
Yeah.
Like,
In a nutshell.
It takes an hour to do this test, right? Why don't they streamline it? Why don't they just give out the questions like before to people to fill out on an online form, and then they have half the amount of time with a psychiatrist, right? Because they've already got their answers, and then they can sit down and have a one-to-one. I don't know why it has to be so fucking lengthy.
I think that's the thing, and that's what we talk about quite a lot. Like, you know, none of us here are doctors. We're not medical professionals, and I would never claim to know what I'm talking about. Disclaimer, no. I absolutely do not. No. But as a person who has been to multiple, you know, appointments with GPs and had multiple pills thrown at me, and have friends that have had very serious antidepressant drugs such as lithium thrown at them, like, that's serious brain shit. That's chemicals, right? So why, and I'm just asking the question, why it has to be a psychiatrist if GPs can throw out prescriptions for things that are affecting people's brains? I just don't
know. So true. That is true. And like, when I told my doctor that I was sad, she just put some sertraline tablets on me.
Yeah.
But since I've come off them, and I've talked about to a different doctor the intricacies of my potentially having PMDD, because I feel my lowest just before my period, like everyone does, but like low. Yeah. Really low. But that doesn't help also with the low mood ADHD brings you, the lack of dopamine and all that. Like, that requires a little bit more digging than just going, oh, you're sad, here's some tablets.
Yeah.
You know, so I think really they I don't know, they need to invest more into that, because if they did that, then the other mental health might be lightened, the load.
Exactly.
Because it will be coming to the root of the cause.
That's
like
the problem. Like,
the guy that
go on, sorry.
I was going to say, the guy that diagnosed me, he was like, I could tell when you were walking up the stairs you had it. And I was like, how? That's amazing. But he said as soon as you walked in the door, that I'm like, okay. So some people are probably so blaringly obvious.
Yeah.
So I think like it's like you say, like obviously none of us want to slag off the NHS. They're doing amazing work and it's not their fault that they're underfunded.
Not the NHS, it's the government.
Exactly. But the point is that us undiagnosed ADHDers are ending up on the dole, divorce, teenage pregnancies, in prison, etc. So it's all about shifting, like investing in this, and then the money and literal lives that would be saved, you know.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So that they I don't see why they need to prioritize those things.
Yes.
Getting those diagnoses done, because think about the effect it's going to have in the long run on everything else.
Exactly that.
Why don't you tell us some positives? Positives to the sides. Well, positive to the sides. My head's potatoes today. I can't even talk. Positive sides to ADHD since diagnosis.
In the world of ADHD, anything positive? I mean, you've touched on it already, but if there's anything else you want to share.
I think, you know what, it's like debunking some previous preconceptions of myself and how I communicate with people. And I guess the positives are like understanding what is ADHD in me and how that affects my life. What I can do about it. So obviously, like most of the positives for me are like my pizzazz, my creativity, my, you know, outgoingness and energy. And I've always had that and loved it. But in terms of like being quite sensitive and taking things quite literally, and I particularly, so I've got combined type, in particular the hyperactivity and rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And so like, for example, I use this as an example every time. If me and Phil are trying to decide what we're doing at the weekend, I will ask him, say on a Wednesday, I'll be like, it's Wednesday, it's nearly the weekend. Let's see what Phil's up to. I'll ring him up on his lunch break and be like, do you want to do something on the weekend? And if he doesn't do this anymore because we've ironed it out, he would go, I don't know yet. And I'd be like, what do you mean you don't know? And I'm also I'm a planner. I love to plan, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't know? Well, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I don't know what I want to do at the weekend. I'm like, well, can we hang out? He goes, well, I don't know yet. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, why the fuck don't you want to hang out with me? That's how I see it. And so we had this massive row because he was like, you're trying to plan my life and do all this, and I don't know what I want to do yet. Like, I kind of want a weekend where I don't have to make plans and all this. Anyway, we had this big row. And then it turns out, I just said to him, you make me feel like you are waiting for something better to come along so you can say yes to that. Or you make me feel like I'm not a priority and that you don't want to see me. He went, no, not at all. Of course I want to see you. I just don't know what I want to do yet. I went, what? So you do want to see me at the weekend? And he'll be like, yes. And I'm like, right, okay. Because that's what I'm hearing. And when you say to me, you don't know, you're actually saying, no, I don't want to see you because I want to go to the pub with the boys if they're offering, right? So if you do intend on seeing me, I know it sounds so fucking stupid, but just say, I do want to see you. I just don't know what and when. But we will see each other.
Yeah.
Clear communication.
It is. And it's just like, what you don't understand is a no to me or I don't know feels like a stab in the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always been like, my mum even said to me, you've never really taken no very well. And I just thought you were spoiled. And I was like, no, I just see no as a rejection, that I'm not worthy of a yes, not because I can't have what I want.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you know, I say, understanding the intricacies of what it is and why it is, I'm able to then say to people, this is the way I am, and this is like why I feel the way I feel. So to avoid any kind of conflict or argument, we just need to learn to communicate better. And that's why I think like coaching would be really helpful as well.
Yeah.
I think the benefit of understanding it is understanding how it impacts me and the people around me through no fault of anyone's, really, because I do find sometimes some of these like being really sensitive and like frustrating, but equally I know I can't help it. But the positives of my diagnosis is understanding that and being able to communicate that with other people.
Can I ask you, just because you were talking about it and it brought it up in my mind. So when you're talking about how now you recognize what it is, you can explain to people, right, this is how I perceive it, so that you can avoid the conflicts and have better communication. But within yourself, because think about it, you know, that's not going to happen if you went to the shop or somebody that you don't know very well, or emails, or all I can think about is you online and social media. Like that keeps coming up for me as well. I'm just like, how does she cope with that? What I'm wondering is, since diagnosis, now that you know what all that's about, are you able to rationalize it in your own mind? Or do you feel that your emotions and your feelings and your sensitivity still win? Or can you sit there and go, this is hurting me, but I know that that's just ADHD and I shouldn't matter that much?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a few things have helped. So especially online, a lot of people, sorry, my tip keeps falling out of it. I'm very conscious of it. People like to tell you how they feel about you, and they like to tell you when they think that you're wrong or that you're terrible, or, you know, and I've had it for years. And originally I'd get quite riled up and angry and annoyed at them. And sometimes I would reply, sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I'd lose hours like reeling over someone's comment. Then I did therapy, and I was able to, like, if someone disagreed with something I'd said or done, I was able to then rationalize that thought and go, that's how they think. This is how I think. That's okay. I can reply politely exactly that. And if they choose to retaliate still and argue back, then that's their problem. That says more about them, that they aren't open to accept that we have our differences. So that helped. But then also, like you said, if I feel myself getting upset about it, I always put it through a process. It's like, why am I sad about this? Is it a question? Why do I feel the way that I feel? And then sometimes you're just feeling this because of your ADHD. And you're like, okay, all right, that's all right. It's all right. It'll be fine. And then continue, you know? So and I do think that, you know, I don't know about you, but one of the main traits of having ADHD is this people pleasing thing.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think that being someone whose career is based off essentially being liked and like accepted, like people follow me because they like what I do and what I offer, and so it is essentially a case of people have to like who I am or what I'm about to in some juncture have success and have people want to work with me, like commercially. So it can be really tough. Like I think that I probably feel it more than someone that is neurotypical, that kind of need to please. And so, you know, I have to recently sort of take a step back and try and be more rational in my way of thinking about, what if they didn't like that, or that person didn't, you know, they've upset them, or they've disagreed. You just stop that. It's fine. It's fine. So, it's an interesting choice of career.
Yeah.
You really just want people to like you all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So, but I think that I have coped all right. I'm still here doing it.
Yeah.
It's not always been that easy. I think it is quite a mental turmoil. It is quite a mental challenge. No one else sees it, but in my brain I'm like, whoa, processing things. That needs to go in that box, that needs to go through that dryer, or that needs to go and be sort of compartmentalized, you know. And it is a process, but it happens quickly. It is like a funnel. Where's it going to go? But no one sees that. No one knows that. And I also think that's interesting when with ADHD, like you can know people for fucking years and they think that you're all cool and fine and you've got your shit together and that you're successful and like you're great. And I'm like, you don't know what goes on in here.
Yeah.
It's been hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that in mind, what is the most ADHD thing you've done this week?
Oh my
if you'd
God.
like to share
I am an embodiment of it.
Yeah,
we
all feel that.
I saw that question on this bit of paper and I thought they're going to ask me that. And I don't know what it's going to be. What of the many things is it going to be? I don't know. Today I've been, God, I don't know. I think everything I do is ADHD written all over it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I fiddle with everything anyway all the time. I just always flapping around. Just forgetting that. Just like, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that right now. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
That's just me every day. It's hard to pinpoint it. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I'm working from home. When my partner comes through the door, hi Val, guess what I did today? It's just constantly feeling like you're a child. I am a child inside my body.
That's so funny because that literally just happened to me. My husband walked in the door and I immediately went, so I was just thinking about I just saw him just look at me like kind of wide-eyed but sort of despair at the same time. Like, Jesus Christ, can I have a cup of tea?
That is really, really interesting thought. I thought we could build a trench around the house and fill it full of fish.
Oh, I love it.
I constantly feel like a child.
Yeah.
I was at work yesterday. I'm working part-time in a restaurant. I'm a student just now. And I was at work and I'm working with a bunch of 19, 20-year-olds. And I'm 39. Right. And I'm having chats with them. And I'm just like, and some of the things I'm saying to them, they're giving me strange looks and being like, what? Just because it's childish behavior. And then I'm like, am I just trying to come down to their level, or is it just me? And I'm like, no, it's actually just me. I just don't feel like an adult.
No, well, I did that when we moved. So we live in the same village. I moved here like a year or so ago. And when we moved, there was a couple down the road. And I went home to my husband. I said, oh, there's a really nice couple down the road that are our age. They're 15 years younger than us. But in my head, I'm like 20 something, like just completely that I'm nearly 40, just not getting it at all.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get better.
I think that's probably my favorite thing about ADHD. Is it's like the Peter Pan syndrome.
Yeah.
I just feel young. And
because why would you want to be old and mithery?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to having kids for the childishness and energy. But the thing I'm not looking forward about having kids is, will I get bored of them after 5 minutes? And so,
this is what's great about having nieces. I have 2 nieces and I can play with them until I get bored and then just hand them back.
Children are boring now. I want my own space.
Helen, it's been so lovely to talk to you. We were wondering, is there anything that you would like to say to our listeners? Any pearls, anything that you'd like to share?
Okay, probably that I just want to say, because I need to say it to myself as well, don't be so bloody hard on yourself. If you've been diagnosed or you are going to be diagnosed, it's not easy living with ADHD, but there's nothing wrong with you for having it. And the way that you decide to spend your days, the way that you decide to fashion your life to suit it is absolutely fine. Because it's like sometimes trying to put a square peg in a round hole. We're not made to be like everybody else, because we're not. So if you need more time doing things, or you can't stick to a routine, or you find that certain situations hard, or that you're just not cut out for the 9-to-5 life, don't fucking do it.
Yeah. I got goosey friends. Go on, love. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to say? You done?
Well, thank you for having me. It's really nice to be able to talk about it and not feel like Well, I never feel like I'm a nag. I don't talk about it that often with like my peers because I don't want to get on their nerves.
Yeah,
I don't shut up about it.
Although they might all have it too.
Yeah, probably. To be fair, my friend Sinead, when she come over, we're always talking about it because her and her daughter are going to be diagnosed. So, yeah, so it is quite nice. And also my oldest sister thinks that she's got it, but she didn't want to say anything because she didn't want it to seem like she was stealing my thunder. And I said, don't be daft.
That's how genetics work, okay?
I was like, we've got it off one of our parents, so
yeah,
we're bound to have it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Honestly, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. We know you're super busy.
Yeah, you've been a star.
And it's just so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. And if you ever want any help with anything or if you're doing anything, just hit me up. I'll be there.
Thank you so much. We really, really, really appreciate it. And I hope you have a lovely evening. We know that everything that you've said is really going to make a difference to our listeners. So we
I hope so. I really do.
Yes. And we wish you all the best on the late diagnosis roller coaster, which we are riding right alongside you.
Yes.
Oh, bless. Thank you. And obviously good luck with the podcast. And I hope that everyone in the whole world hears it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, lovely. Thanks so much.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was Helen Anderson.
I know. How brilliant is she?
So good. She had so many things that I just related to so much. The little things that she was speaking about with childhood trauma as well. Like I can relate to that. My parents split up when I was 4. And I really see a lot of, her persona in the way that I am as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. It was a proper relatable episode for me.
Totally agree. And, there was so much to take away from it, and it was really, really lovely of her to give us those pearls, to be what we're always saying is be kind to yourself, but it's like give yourself a break as well. I did feel like I don't 100% agree with how Helen sees everything, the superpower thing we've talked about before, and also I just wanted to say that I don't accredit the disorder for the positive traits. I think that they're her, and I think that none of us need to go, oh, my ADHD makes me this ball of energy that can light up a room. No, that's on you.
I guess it's just that trying to make positive out of something.
Oh God, 100%.
Trying to see the good in something.
But I want people to see the good in themselves.
Yeah.
Because the ADHD has robbed so much from us.
Exactly, yeah.
But honestly, what a ledge, and just super grateful. So thank you so much, Helen. And come back. We want to be your best friend.
We really do.
When I'm next in Norwich, I'll be like, Helen, let's hang out.
I'm like that every time we speak to someone though. Yeah. It's just like, I want to talk to you for longer.
It's the kindred spirit thing. We haven't had enough of us, and to go through this really bizarre, unique, wonderful, terrible experience that is the ADHD late diagnosis roller coaster.
I think it helps us so much in our journey as well.
Completely.
Talking to all these people and being able to, relate and share each other's stories with each other.
And it is almost every time the stories that people are telling is we could literally be talking as we're listening. It's the same feeling.
It's like nodding along constantly.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Helen. And if you've enjoyed this episode and taken anything away or felt validated or anything, then we would be super, super grateful if you could make a donation to our Buy Me a Coffee page.
It's buymeacoffee/ADHD as females. And you can buy us a coffee, buy us 2 coffees, or buy us 50,000.
But thank you to everyone who has donated, because it's really, really helping us in terms of not just the hours that we put in behind the scenes, it's also helping us cover the costs of the podcast. And we are looking to do some merch because people were well up for the merch.
I know.
Which is exciting. So we are going to get on that. But we could do with a little bit of help financially. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And also for anyone who wants to share us in, Facebook support groups, anything like that, and hitting those stars helps us massively. But Dawn, tell me, what is the most ADHD thing you have done this week?
It's just a little thing, but it's like all these little things that we do all the time. It's just one of those. And this one just made me laugh today. So I was at work and I decided to go to the bathroom. And on my way to the bathroom is the kitchen. So I thought, I'm going to take my mug with me at the same time. And I'll drop my mug off in the kitchen so that when I come back, I can make myself a mug of tea. And, you know, I already knew in my head I'm probably going to forget about this mug and not make the cup of tea. So I went down, went for a wee, came back upstairs, and halfway up the stairs I remembered the mug, and I was like, yes, I'm going to make a cup of tea, and I didn't forget, because normally I'd get back to my desk and I'd be like, oh, I left the mug.
Yeah.
But no, not this time. So I got up, I walked into the kitchen, my mug was sitting there, and I was feeling so smug in that
Smug about your mug.
Smug about my mug. I made it to the kitchen and I remembered, for once in my life, I had remembered, and put the tea bag in the cup and then went over to the sink and filled it up with cold water. Like, what? Oh. I just failed at the last hurdle.
It's so funny.
But in my defense, we've got one of those like little taps that gives you hot water.
Yeah.
So like
somewhere in your brain it made sense.
Yeah. But I was just like, you couldn't make this up.
Damn it!
It was so close.
Dr. James Brown has a whole theme of not being able to make cups of tea that goes on in his stories. So it's a very, very common one to have. Yeah. I just feel like you were robbed there. You were like, victory is mine, and then like, no.
No, I was literally I was honestly dancing up the stairs because I was like, I remembered about my mug. Yeah. And I was properly dancing. And then I did that, and I was just like, yeah, you can't make this shit up.
No, you can't, but you have got to laugh. Mine is I forgot to take my meds on Saturday.
Oh,
you know those really, really addictive meds? Yeah? I forgot to take it. And I didn't notice at all until Sunday morning, but I had a bit of a low mood on the Saturday night, but I just hadn't thought, because I do take it properly and I'm, you know, conscious of it. So it just didn't occur to me that had happened. But then on Sunday, and subsequently since, I just can't do numbers at all.
Yeah.
At all. Like, I put scheduled in a meeting wrong in our calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put that on for the wrong day. And then I put out a post tagging Helen Anderson. How embarrassing. With the wrong episode number and the wrong bloody date. Checked it, double checked it 50,000 times, put it up. Absolutely happy, and then the penny dropped, and it's just like, oh my god. So yeah,
I'll take a little bit of responsibility in that as well, because you sent it to me and I didn't pick up on it at all. Okay. So it's not all down to you. I didn't notice. So
but there you go. Hey ho. But yeah, like we say, we hope we'll ask on the page as ever what the most ADHD thing you did last week.
Yes.
This week or last week, because we really enjoy hearing it.
Yeah.
It makes us all feel a bit more normal, and at least we can laugh at ourselves, you know.
It's fun hearing all your stories, and
and just hearing from you in general. We're getting so many lovely messages from people with really great suggestions, and just to tell us that, you know, where they're up to on their journey, and that it's resonating, and that really means the world, because that's really what we are doing this for at the end of the day, is because we want to use our experiences in the hope that they help others. So the fact that it is amazing. Let's call it a day.
Yeah. See you next time.
Loads of love. Mwah.
Mwah.
ADHD as females, ADHD AF. ADHD as females, the podcast.